Call to order. Welcome to Aurora's Committee of Adjustment meeting. The time is 7:04 p.m. on Thursday, September 12, 2024. I would like to call this Committee of Adjustment meeting to order. I will start by introducing the committee members and staff. I am the committee chair. My name is David Mhango, and the remaining members are as follows. Chris Porcineri, Michael Visconti, Julian Young, and Jane Stevenson, the vice chair, who's not present with us tonight. The secretary treasurer is Peter Fan, and the senior planner is Antonio Greco. Land acknowledgement. The town of Aurora acknowledges that the Anishinaabe lands on which we live and work are the traditional and treaty territory of the Chippewas of Georgina Island, as well as many other nations whose presence here continues to this day. As the closest First Nation community to Aurora, we recognize the special relationship the Chippewas have with the lands and waters of this territory. They are the water protectors and environmental stewards of these lands, and as a municipality, we join them in these responsibilities. We further acknowledge that Aurora is part of the treaty lands of the Mississaugas and Chippewas, recognized through Treaty Number 13, as well as the Williams Treaties of 1923. A shared understanding of the rich cultural heritage that has existed for centuries and how our collective past brought us to where we are today will help us work together into a better future. Tonight's meeting will now commence. I will start with the approval of agenda. I will require a mover and seconder from the members. Julian Young is the mover. You have a seconder. Michael Visconti is a seconder. All in favor? Motion carried. Declaration of interest. To the members, are there any declarations of pecuniary interest and the general nature thereof? I see heads shaking, so none. Confirmation of past minutes. I require a mover and seconder. I see Michael Visconti, this mover, and the seconder. Julian Young is the seconder. All in favor of the motion? Motion carried. Hearing of applications. This public meeting is being audio and video recorded. It is also being conducted virtually and through the use of Zoom technology. Your name, address, comments, and any other personal information are being recorded according to the Municipal Act and the Municipal Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act. This will help our town clerk prepare accurate minutes and to create a record that is available to the general public, including on the town's website. Questions about the collection should be directed to the town clerk. Please be advised that the reports being considered tonight are available on the Town of Aurora website and through staff at the town's planning department. Should you wish to receive notification of any of the decisions of tonight's meeting, please complete the appropriate form available through town staff. Applicants and agents will automatically be notified. For each application that will be considered tonight, the following process will occur. I will briefly outline the purpose of the applications, and then the applicant agent will then be given the opportunity to make a presentation. However, one is not required. It is the applicant's decision whether they wish to speak or let the application proceed on the merits of the information as received. Presentations and deputations are limited to 5 minutes, as much as possible. Following any initial comments from the applicant, I will invite members of the public who have interest in the application to come forward and address the committee. Those members of the public who wish to speak must clearly state their name and address and must provide this information to the Secretary Treasurer. Should you wish to obtain a copy of the notice of decision, please complete the appropriate form available through the Clerk Treasurer. Members of the public are reminded that text comments are not permitted during the meeting, and they will not be noted in any manner or at any time. Each individual may speak only once on an issue, and once discussion has commenced in respect of a motion, no further presentations shall be made. If you require any technical assistance with the presentations, please let me know. If you wish to speak and are currently following this meeting on the YouTube feed, you will need to turn this feed off and join the live meeting, as there is a slight lag between the YouTube and live feed. Please ensure that all questions and all comments are directed to me as the chair, and if relevant, I will request the appropriate person to respond. It should be noted that the applicant will be given the opportunity to respond to any questions or comments, should the committee feel that is appropriate. We'll now start reviewing the applications. The first application is a minor variance application, minor variance number MV-2024-01 at 2007 Vandorf Side Road. The application. Planning staff are requesting a deferral of this minor variance application. Planning staff have indicated that the additional time is needed for the Ontario Ministry of Transportation, MTO, to review the subject application. The MTO has identified that a portion of the proposed development is within the required setback from the MTO property line, and it requires that the proposal be revised to ensure that no development is within the setback. Staff recognize the importance of making informed decisions and believe the requested deferral will enable the applicant to revise their plans and are compliant with MTO's requirements. As a result, staff are requesting the subject application be deferred for consideration pending MTO's review and approval of the proposed development. The applicant has been made aware of this and also supports the decision. That's the application. Since this is a deferral application, I'm just wondering, Peter, do we have the applicant maybe want to speak or not?
Through you, Mr. Chair, the applicant is not present at the meeting today.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so I will look for a motion from the members of the committee. Julian?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I'll move to defer the application MV-2024-01.
Okay, do we have a seconder for that motion? Chris is the seconder. All in favor of this motion? Motion carried. The second application is a minor variance application, MV-2024-20 at 313 Ridge Road. The application. The applicant is requesting relief from the requirements of the town's comprehensive zoning bylaw 6000-17 as amended to facilitate the construction of one-story addition to the easterly side of the existing dwelling, a front covered porch, an expansion to the existing outdoor rear deck, and a one-story workshop garage addition to the westerly side of the existing dwelling. The following relief is being requested. A, Section 14.1 of the zoning bylaw states no person shall use the land, including expanding, enlarging, or otherwise altering an existing use, building, or structure for any use other than a use legally existing as of November 15, 2001, without amendment to or relief from the zoning bylaw. The applicant is proposing to construct a one-story addition, covered porch, and deck that did not exist prior to November 15, 2001, thereby requiring a minor variance. B, section 14.1.bi of the zoning bylaw requires a minimum exterior side yard of 15 meters. The applicant is proposing a one-story addition and deck, which are 12.6 meters to the exterior side property line, thereby requiring a variance of 2.4 meters. C, section 14.1b or I of the zoning bylaw requires a minimum front yard of 15 meters. The applicant is proposing a one-story garage addition, which is 13.8 meters to the front property line, thereby requiring a variance of 1.2 meters. Applicants stated reasons for not complying with the zoning bylaw. As stated on the minor variance application form, the applicant is seeking to enhance wheelchair accessibility within the existing home, and it is not possible to enlarge or alter in the existing dwelling without relief from the zoning bylaw. Public correspondence. There are no opposition letters, and also there are no supporting letters. In conclusion, planning staff are of the opinion that the requested variance meets the 4 tests of the Planning Act for granting of minor variances. Staff recommend approval of the requested variances subject to the 7 conditions outlined in the staff report. And this is the application. So do we have the applicant or agent who wants to speak to this application?
Yes.
So if you could give us your name and address, please.
Yes, good evening. Through the chair, my name is Kristen DeCassian of C-Space Architecture, the agent and architect of the project. Our address is 8841 George Bolton Parkway, Unit B5 in Caledon. The proposed project is one-story additions of an office room to the east side of the dwelling, a primary bedroom, ensuite washroom for wheelchair accessibility, and a laundry room to be relocated onto the ground floor for easier accessibility for the homeowners. As mentioned, we're proposing the zoning reliefs to expand and modify the existing home to improve wheelchair accessibility for the homeowners. We're thankful for the Town of Aurora's Planning Department's support for the minor variances proposed. And we can go through the design if you'd like now.
So did you provide presentation to the town staff?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
So here's the site plan. We will go through the zoning variances that we are requesting. One of the zoning variances that we're requesting is the front yard setback. The proposed workshop garage space that we are proposing encroaches into the 15-meter front yard setback. So we would like a variance of 1.2 meters into that required setback. We are locating that garage at that area there to have access off of the existing driveway with an extension. The next variance that we are asking for is to the east side yard setback. It is a required 15-meter setback, And with the space in that area, we are looking to enlarge that office room for better accessibility and maneuvering space for the homeowners. We would like a variance of 2.4 meters into that side yard setback. And overall, with the zoning, it's stated that the existing dwelling could not be enlarged, but we are asking for a variance for this to have 20.32 square meters of additional space in total. That's including the proposed workshop garage addition. Now we can move on to the next page. This is the existing dwelling floor plan. It currently has one washroom that is quite small and not very accessible for wheelchairs. We would like to enlarge the dwelling and have a wheelchair accessible washroom for the homeowners. As well, we would like to enlarge the office to the east, which is located to the left there on the plan. Oh, the other way, sorry. One more room over. That area there, yes. As it's currently very tight and does not allow for much maneuvering space with furniture in there. And it has a very tight entrance to the stairs to the basement. We can go to the next page. This is the proposed layout with the additions. On the primary bedroom, we see the ensuite addition that we would like to add square footage to the dwelling for. And towards the front of the house, we would like to add a laundry room, mudroom on the main floor so that it's accessible for the homeowners to access all in one level. Through the laundry room and mudroom, we have the workshop. We have and garage. This workshop garage would allow the homeowners to access their vehicles with the use of a ramp and indoor storage of the garage for easier transfer to their vehicles. Going back to the main area of the house here, on the east side of the house, the office is where we would also like to have an addition and where the variance for the east side yard would be required. We can go through to the next page. These are just existing elevations of the house. Next one. Yes, existing. These are the proposed elevation that will be fronting onto Bridge Road. We've tried to keep everything similar scale to the existing house, similar roof heights, as you can see there, and blending the look of the house with the existing material use and shape. Go to the next. Thank you. Yes. From this elevation, you can see the garage that we will be having the access off of the existing driveway. And the rear deck that will be inside there. Yes. Yeah, go to the next one. This is the rear elevation. On this one, you can see the deck that we will be enlarging and reshaping that will require the east side yard setback as well, and the garage there. This is the side where the garage is, to the south side of the house, the south elevation. Next. And that's it. Are there any conditions of approval that we must comply for this application?
Yes, so you have about 7 conditions. if let's say this is actually approved, you have to meet those 7 conditions recommended by the town staff.
And okay, those conditions, are you able to list any of those conditions that?
Yeah, so I would assume you would communicate with the town staff, planning staff, and they would provide you with the report, the minor variance report. Or maybe Antonio, if maybe you would answer, you can address this sort of clarification from the agent.
Yes, to you, Mr. Chair. All the 7 conditions are found in the staff report. So if you do have a copy of the staff report, all the conditions can be found there.
Okay.
If not, we can have the conditions provided to you via email. But they are in the staff report.
Since you asked this, that's okay. Usually we ask if you're aware of these conditions. So definitely it seems you have not seen the report, but you can always, depending upon the outcome, you would be able to see or read the planning staff's report. Okay,
Yes.
so you are done with your presentation?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Do you have any public delegation? Peter?
Through you, Mr. Chair, there are no public delegations for this application.
Okay. Okay, so committee members, any questions, comments, please? You can see Julian is shaking. Michael?
Yes, through you, Mr. Chair. I read through the conditions and there's no mention of, I presume, and this is a question for the applicant's agent, is the property on the septic tank and well water? Or is it municipal services there?
Through the chair, the property is on public water, but it does have a septic system. A new septic system will be proposed.
Oh, I see. Okay, that was my question. Although it's not in the conditions, I guess the additional living area requires an upgrade to the septic system. Is that my assumption?
Yes, the septic system would need to be upgraded, so we're doing that this time. We'll be doing that with this application.
Okay. Yeah, it is quite a large property, so I don't anticipate any issues there. Although the added square footage is quite nominal. It's like it's a 1-bedroom house, right? Yeah.
Yes.
And it's staying that way, right? Okay,
Yes.
that was my only question. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments from other members? Okay, I see Chris is also shaking his head. Mine was actually related to Michael. Seems he read my mind. So I just want to check with the planning staff, maybe Antonio. Is there any anticipation of a site plan application or building permit application which will address the servicing, which Michael actually brought up?
Through you, Mr. Chair, site plan application is not required, but a building permit will be required. The reason any reference to septic wasn't placed as a condition because that's part of the building permit process anyways. So
Yeah.
building permits won't get issued unless the servicing is inspected, not as needed.
Okay. Yeah, so I don't have any other comments or questions. So I'll look up to the committee members for any motions. Michael?
So through you, Mr. Chair, I read the staff report and it's pretty clear that, it is the requests are minor and meet the 4 tests of the Planning Act. So I move that MV 2024-20 be approved.
Do you have any seconder for that motion?
So
Julian?
I'll second that with the addition, I'm sure Michael meant subject to the conditions of the staff.
Oh, subject to the conditions, yeah.
Yeah, subject to the condition of self-support. Okay. So all in favor of this motion? Motion carried. So thanks, Christine. Your application has been approved, and
Thank you.
have a good night.
Thank you, you as well.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we move to the next application is minor variance application number MV 2023-44 at 100 Gooding Avenue. The applicant is requesting relief from the requirements of the town's comprehensive zoning bylaw 600-17 as amended to facilitate the development of a 3-story industrial office building with accessory restaurant use. The proposed site plan is attached to the staff's report. The following relief is being requested. A, Section 10.2 of the zoning bylaw 6000-17 states that the maximum building height be 13.5 meters. The applicant is proposing 17.3 meters, thereby requiring a variance of 3.8 meters. B, Section 24.338.2.1 of the zoning bylaw 6000-17 states that the maximum floor area ratio for office use to be 17%. The applicant is proposing 35%, thereby requiring a variance of 18%. Applicants stated reasons for not complying with the zoning bylaw. As stated by the applicant, the intent of the business park zone is to support and promote the provision of business and professional office spaces. However, the subject site is subject to zoning exception 338, which limits the floor area ratio for office use with the E-B zone to a maximum of 17%. Therefore, the current zoning bylaw does not seem to conform to the higher order policies of the OP or secondary plan. Public correspondence. So there are no supporting letters, no opposing letters. In conclusion, planning staff are of the opinion that the requested variance meets the 4 states of the Planning Act for granting of minor variances, subject to one condition in the staff report. And that's the application. Do we have an applicant or agent who wants to speak to this application?
Good evening, Mr. Chair. My name is Shilpi Saraf Outerlinden, and I will be speaking to this application this evening. May I begin?
No, you also need to give us your address, please.
Yes, of course. So my name is Shilpi Saraf Outerlinden. I'm a planner with the Biglieri Group. We are located at 2472 Kingston Road in Scarborough, Ontario. And I also have a presentation that I did provide to Peter Fan.
Yeah, okay, so.
All right, wonderful. So as I said, my name is Shilpi Saraf Outerlinden. I'm a planner with the Biglieri Group, and I am joined by my colleague Mallory Nevis. So we are representing the owners of 100 Golding Avenue.
Sorry to interrupt. So if you're with somebody else, so we have to have introductions first. So your name
and
then the other person.
Oh, of course,
is it
please.
Other person here also to speak or just you?
No, I'm just here to speak. My apologies.
Okay. So don't mention about the other person. Yeah. Okay, continue then. Continue then.
My name is Mallory Nieves. I'm an associate of the Biglieri Group. I'm just here in case any questions come up to support Shilpi. So I will not be speaking.
Okay. But still, I think we need to get the information. since just in case you want to speak or address some questions. So, Peter, did you get the name? Or can you just repeat your name, please?
It's Mallory Nieves, Nievas. And I'm also
Okay.
from the Bigley Erie Group and same address as what Shilpi provided.
Okay. Okay, thank you very much. So
Thank you.
please continue with the presentation. Yeah.
Of course, my apologies. We represent the owners of 100 Golding Avenue, and we are requesting two minor variances, an increase in the height of the proposed building and an increase in the permitted floor area ratio for office use. To begin, we have reviewed the staff report, and we, as well as our clients, agree with it and the included condition. As a background, an application for site plan approval was submitted to the town of Aurora on December 22nd, 2022, proposing the development of a U-shaped 2- and 3-story industrial/office building. Next slide, please. The subject site is vacant and is located on the west side of Golding Avenue and the north side of Don Hillock Drive. The total site area is 8,008.37 meters squared. The site is designated business park in the town official plan and is subject also to the Bayview Northeast area secondary plan. The site is zoned employment area business park in the town of Aurora zoning bylaw. Next slide, please. The development proposal seeks to facilitate a U-shaped 2- and 3-story industrial office building with 2 accessory restaurants. 159 parking spaces are offered, split between surface spaces and underground spaces as well. Next slide, please. The site plan on the screen provides for a visual of the proposed development. The ground floor offers industrial and restaurant uses, whereas the office use occupies the 2nd and 3rd stories. Next slide, please. The first minor variance request is related to height. Per the zoning bylaw, the maximum permitted height on the site is 13.5 meters. Originally, the minor variance application sought an increase in height to 15.5 meters, 17 meters to the high parapet, resulting in a 2-meter increase in the height, and which is a 3.5 meter to the high parapet. Upon reviewing the average grades for the site, and based on the more accurate determination of average finished grade, the building height is 15.8 meters, which is 17.3 meters to the high parapet, rather than the 15.5 meters, per discussions with the town of Aurora staff. The height of the building has not changed since the first and second application, just a more in-depth understanding of what it is based on the average finished grade. The minor variance addendum letter submitted to the town in August 2024 does make note of this minor deviation from the original request, which results in a 2.3 meter increase in height, 3.8 meters to the high parapet. Now, while the secondary plan restricts the height to 4 stories, it also allows for an increase in height in specific areas in the employment business park zone to facilitate both industrial and commercial uses. 4-story industrial and commercial buildings may range in height from 13.5 to 18 meters, as the floor height for commercial stories range between 3 and 4.5 meters. This proposed increase in height is limited to the portion of the building fronting onto Golding Avenue. The minor variance facilitates a distinctive landmark architectural design with the addition of the high parapet, and in conformity with the secondary plan, promotes visual attractiveness in the area. It does not result in an incompatible built form or character with the existing surrounding buildings. Next slide, please. The elevation on the screen provides a visual of the proposed development, demonstrating the view of the building from Golding Avenue. Next slide, please. The second minor variance request is related to floor area ratio. Exception 338 of the zoning bylaw restricts the maximum permitted floor area ratio for office use to 17%. The minor variance seeks to increase the maximum permitted floor area ratio for office use to 35%, requiring a variance of 18%. Both the town's official plan and the secondary plan promote office use in the business park area as the preferred use. Furthermore, buildings in the immediate vicinity of the subject site exceed the permitted maximum floor area ratio of 17%, as they are comprised predominantly of business office. For example, at 47 Don Hillock Drive and 126 Don Hillock Drive. Next slide, please. This visual demonstration shows what the second and third story floor plans would look like. Next slide, please. And this is a visual example of the surrounding business offices that do exceed the permitted floor area ratio of 17%. One is York Regional Police Headquarters, and the other one is the corporate headquarters for WSP. Next slide, please. Now, this presentation provides an analysis on the conformity of the 4 tests, and I would be happy to go through that if there are any questions. If there aren't, I would like to end by thanking the committee for the opportunity to speak and staff for their immense efforts in the preparation of the recommendation report. I'm happy to answer any questions and go through the minor variance tests if it so suits the chair.
Thank you very much. Shilpi, I think, yeah. Sorry if I mispronounce your name, but
no, not at all. It's great.
thank you very much for your presentation. So do we have any public delegates who'd like to speak?
Through you, Mr. Chair, there are no public delegations for this application.
Okay, so committee members, do you have any questions or comments? Hi, Julian.
Mr. Chair, this is a question for town staff. So when I was reading the report and listening to the applicant's presentation, I was just wondering, zoning exception 338 with the 17% floor area ratio limit for office use. What was the thinking behind 17% at the time?
Through you, Mr. Chair. So the exceptions of 338, so when the properties were rezoned at that point in time, they didn't anticipate for the influx of business office use in industrial buildings. So we found a lot of lots in this area having to vary from the floor area office ratio, as mentioned in the presentation with some properties on Don Hilla. So essentially, we saw a greater demand for an increase, in which triggers a minor variance to increase. So at the time when this was rezoned, we didn't anticipate for the demand, and now having to readjust based on what's coming in from landowners.
So just to dig farther, I guess. So 17%, is it because the town didn't want office spaces at the time, or was it just a number that was chosen?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair, I can't exactly speak to how the 17% came about at the time when it was rezoned. There had to be the landowner at the time maybe wanted to restrict the office to be only 17%. There's no real reasoning I can give you on why it was 17 and not 30. So now we're having to deal with it on a case by case and evaluating what's being proposed, the type of business, and does it fit into the local surrounding adjacent properties.
Okay, thank you.
So any other questions or comments from other members? Hi, Michael.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I wasn't clear in reading the staff report and just maybe ask the agent for the applicant. Is there underground parking gonna be provided here? And you mentioned, what was it, 55 spaces?
Yes, through you, Mr. Chair, there will be 55 underground parking spaces provided for the site.
Okay. And then just a question as to the restaurant use. I guess that was my concern with on-site, on-level parking. Is it gonna be your typical restaurant or a fast food restaurant? What type of are you projecting to see there?
Through you, Mr. Chair, at this time, we do not have a particular tenant in mind, but the understanding is, the intent really, I should say, for areas with predominant office use is to create an environment where the workers will have a place to eat, grab a bite, leave their spaces, and sort of create a more holistic community for the area where people in the with other neighboring properties have options to come and eat. But in terms of specific tenants or the type of restaurant use, we don't have that information at this time.
Okay, well, see, my concern was along with Julian with the 17% maximum, that it was causing a difficulty with me on the amount of parking required, but that can be addressed later, I guess. Well, thank you. That's no further questions.
Any questions from Chris?
For you, Mr. Chair, my questions have been answered and asked by previous members, so all good for me.
Okay. Yeah, so for me, I'll just say I'll thank you, the Shilpi, for the comparison of existing developments within the area, the York Region Police and others. Yeah, usually look at conformity and see, you know, some other infrastructure which is already there. So that was somehow good. And Michael already mentioned about parking and ground parking. I don't want to waste, anybody's time. I know at the site plan stage, the town will look for all the required reports, geotechnical reports, the hydrogeological reports, to see if there's okay in terms of the soils underneath, the watering, if it's required, anything which is required. So I'm really hoping that the town, the staff will do a good job as they've usually done in other applications. So I'll not waste time to ask questions about that. And I know you don't have maybe an engineer or any professional at this point in those other areas, so I will not waste your time. So any other, maybe a second round of questions, Julian or Michael, at all? Okay, Antonio, you want to speak?
Mr. Chair, just for the benefit of the committee, for this property, the total required parking, it is 77 spaces, but they're providing 159. So essentially there's double the amount of spaces, just for the benefit of the committee, to ensure that even at its utmost capacity, it can handle the demand.
Mm-hmm.
But we don't foresee it being all the parking spaces filled, especially parking spaces.
Okay, thank you, Anthony. Okay, with this, so do we have any motions from the members of the committee? Chris?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I move to approve application MV-2023-44, subject to the conditions outlined in the staff report.
Okay, do we have any seconder on that motion? Julian?
Okay, I'll second that motion.
Okay, all in favor of the motion? Motion carried. So thank you very much, Shilpi and your colleague for being with us tonight, and your application has been approved. So
Thank you very much.
have a good night. Have a good night.
Have a wonderful evening. Thank
Okay,
you.
thank you.
Bye.
Okay, goodbye. Okay, going on. So the next application or next applications, the related applications. So you're going to consent application and minor variance, 2 minor variances for the same property, same owner, and they are related. Basically, the approval of the minor variance will depend on the consent application. So what we'll do is we'll start with the consent application, and then later on we'll look at the minor variances. And for the minor variances, there are 2 of them, but for the same property, we'll actually adjust them separately in terms of voting approval or something like that. So I'll start with the consent application, and I'll read the consent application, and then I'll read the minor variance, and after that, that's when we'll make decisions. But when we're making decisions, we'll start with the consent application. Okay. So the consent application for Cornerstone Growth Investment Corp. at 31st Kennedy Street West, the consent application number C-2024-02. The application. The purpose of the proposed consent application is to sever the subject lands with frontages along Kennedy Street West. A, proposed severed lands are actually part 1 of the draft plan of severance, which is the western portion, which have a lot area of 432.7 square meters and a lot frontage of 15.26 meters. B, the proposed retained lands are part 2 of the draft plan of severance, the eastern portion, which have a lot area of 446.7 square meters and a lot frontage of 15.25 meters. Then we'll go straight to public correspondence. So there are 2 opposing letters and there's no supporting letter. In conclusion, staff are satisfied with the proposed consent application. Staff have no objection to approving the consent application subject to the 14 conditions in the staff report. So there are 14 conditions. And that's the application, the consent application. Now I'm going to read the minor variances. So these are come under one minor variance application, but there were 2 different numbers. So again, for the same owner, Cornerstone Growth Investment Corp. At the 31st Kennedy, so at 31 Kennedy Street West, and the minor variance files are MV-2024-17 and MV-2024-18. The application. The applicant is requesting relief from the requirements of the town's comprehensive zoning bylaw 6000-17 as amended to facilitate the creation of 1 new residential lot through consent application number C-2024-02. The following relief is being requested. Now, for the minor variance application MV-2024-17, which is related to part 1, proposed severed lot, the western portion. The requested variance is section 7.2 of the zoning bylaw requires a minimum lot area of 460 square meters. The applicant is proposing a lot area of 432.7 square meters. Now, for the minor variance application MV-2024-18, which is related to part 2, the proposed retained lot, the eastern portion. There are 2 variances. The first one, section 7.2 of the zoning bylaw requires a minimum lot area of 460 square meters. The applicant is proposing a lot area of 446.7 square meters. The second one, second variance, section 24.497.3.2 of the zoning bylaw requires a minimum interior side yard of 1.5 meters. The existing 1-story detached dwelling is 1.2 meters to the proposed interior side property line. Applicants stated reasons for not complying with the zoning bylaw. The applicant has stated the following on the application form. The aim of our gentle densification project is to create a new lot of a similar size as the retained lot, and as such, and as much as possible, similar to the immediate neighboring lots. If one lot was much larger or smaller than the other, we feel that it would be less desirable to the neighborhood. The current proposal is to have the retained lot with an area of 446.7 square meters and a frontage of 15.25 meters. The newly created lot will have an area of 432.7 square meters and a frontage of 15.26 meters. The two lots will have almost identical frontages. If we were to make the newly created lot larger, 460 square meters, it will impact the size of the retained lot, 419.4 square meters, and likely their frontages. Having a large and a small lot will be less visually desirable to the neighborhood. Public correspondence. So there are two opposing letters and no supporting letters. In conclusion, planning staff are of the opinion that the requested variance meets the four tests of the Planning Act for granting minor variances. Staff recommend approval of the requested variances subject to the two conditions in the staff report. And so that's the minor variance application. Now, do we have the applicant or agent who would like to speak to these applications? So you're going to face the consent application and then the two minor variances, which come as a package as one minor variance application. Okay, I can see somebody there. So are you the applicant or the agent?
I am the applicant. Mr.
Okay,
Chair.
so if you could give us your name, full name, as well as your address, please.
Mr. Chair, members of the Committee of Adjustment, thank you for hearing my applications. My name is Megan Lee, and I live at 37 Kennedy Street West in Aurora.
Okay, so do you have a presentation or you want to speak to your application?
I do. Peter's gonna help me out with that.
Okay.
This presentation is for the consent application. Can you guys see that? I'm just trying to make it smaller. Perfect. That is the subject property, 31 Kennedy Street West. Next, please. The consent is to create a new lot. This is the property as it stands right now is 30.51 meters or 100.1 feet wide. Next, please. And just an idea of an area view of approximate size of the lots and the neighboring lots. The 31 is substantially bigger than 29, 25. Next, please. The proposed severance is to create a new lot. So the original lot size, part 1 and part 2 together, is 879.4 square meters. The frontage is 30.5 meters. I want to proposing to divide into two parts. The frontage of part 1 and part 2 will be almost identical, 15.26 meters and 15.25 meters. And their footage for part 1, which is the left side, is going to be 432.7 square meters. And the one on the right is just slightly bigger, 446.7 meters square. The attempt is really to make both of them as fairly equal as possible. I live next door. I care about what this looks like. I just wanted to, I think that having equal sized lots would be the best for the neighborhood. Next, please. This is just a more simplistic view. The map itself came from the town. So if we look at the proposed lot, the proposed retained lot, and then the next two properties, you can see visually they're about the same size. Next, please. The house that sits on the property, there is a demolition permit. The goal is to make the lots the same size. I am going to demolish the part that juts out, the addition that juts out to make the left wall flushed, and then allowing me to have two lots of substantially the same size. Next, please. This picture was taken last week. The demolition has been completed. Actually, this morning is when we had the final inspection. Everything is cleared except for a consumer's gas or certificate on the new furnace. So we're good with the demolition and all of the building items related. Next, please. So this is a picture of the proposed new lot. As you can see, it goes from where the fence is to almost a laneway. It's a good size. It's 15.2 meters. So just give you a visual of what it looks like. Next, please. This is a buildable footprint. We haven't made a decision as to what we're going to do with the new lot, but just to show that based on zoning bylaws and so on and so forth and setbacks, that we could build up to a footprint of 149.11 square meters. That equates to like 1605 square feet. I think like in square feet. That is pretty big. That's bigger than my current house in terms of footprint. Next one, please. This is just a simplified view of what it would look like in terms of frontage and size and so forth. And then we compare it to 29 and 25, which are my neighbor's house. And final slide, please. You kind of have a nice view of those two properties. They're of similar frontage. These houses are pretty big, even for Aurora, and very comfortable. That is the last slide for my consent. Should I move on to the minor variance as well? And then I do want to address the two opposition letters.
Yes, you can do that, yes, because we're looking at them all together. Yeah.
Okay. Same house is minor variance 17 and 18th of 2024. Next, please. As Mr. Chair, you mentioned, minor variance 17 is a minimum lot size. Minor variance we're asking for, and then 18th is the minimum lot size, in addition to a minimum interior side yard. Next, please. So the zoning on that property is R7 SN 497, and it requires for new lots, single detached dwellings of 460 meters, 15 meters. Next, please. So why are we not able to meet those requirements? We're pretty close. One of the big ones is that the existing lot is 879.4 meters squares, just not large enough to divide that into 460. Close, but not there. And then I want to create two lots of similar size. So that's why I'm not able to do a 460 and something that's much smaller. The frontage of both lots are fine. They're 15.5. If you look at the bottom chart, it might be a little bit small. The difference, I guess I'm trying to show of the size for the proposed lot, new lot on the left, is 27.3 meters square, and the difference on the retained parcel there is 13.3 meters square. When I compare it to the 460 as required by the zoning bylaw. Next, please. Once again, as we've seen this slide in the previous presentation, it's to try to create lots of similar size. And when you compare it to 29 and 25, they're relatively comparable. And this is desirable, and since we do care. And then the next one I want to address is the setback. The requirement is for 1.5 meter. It's really the same reason why I want to create 2 lots of a similar size as possible. And considering that the house we're preserving, we're not moving the house or demolishing the house, to make the 2 lots of equal size, the best as I can is to put the proposed property line at 1.2 meter to the west of the building. The house is to be preserved, the garage stays there. And the difference is 0.3 meters relative to the zoning bylaw. And if it's okay, Mr. Chair, I would like to address the 2 opposition letters that have been received.
Yes, please, continue.
The first one I want to address is David and Adrian Fletchers, who owns 41 Kennedy Street West. That's the house just on the other side of the laneway. So not the houses where I have included in my picture, but there's a laneway and then the other side. The Fletchers own a beautiful 2-acre property. It's absolutely stunning, with a pond and a river that runs through it. In my view, is one of the most beautiful properties in Aurora, actually. So because of the location of the river and the groundwater, and the neighboring properties are going to drain into the property. It's just part of the property is in the floodplain. The beauty has this risk. The severing of the lots, creating 2 lots, will have no impact to the groundwater runoff. But the future building of the building could potentially impact that. And I absolutely agree. So not the severance component, but when if I build, that we would certainly include an engineering study considering the gradient and focusing on stormwater management. That is something that would be done with the application of the building itself. But with the severance and the consent, it really has no impact because we're not changing anything that's relating to the land or the gradient at this point in time. And the second point is that Kennedy Street West is like a Rosedale of Aurora. I once again totally agree with David and Adrian. It has beautiful rolling hills. Matter of fact, I've lived at 37 Kennedy, this is in the laneway, for over 20 years. And I absolutely love the neighborhood. Our kids were raised here. We intend to stay here forever. So in planning for the consent to sever, we have taken every effort to focus on maintaining the quality of the neighborhood. Anything that's within our control, we would certainly not allow the neighborhood to degrade because I care. It's my home. So hence, that's why we focus so hard to make the 2 lots of equal size. So that is the first letter of objection. And then the second one I want to address as well. The second one is from my very new neighbor who lives at the end of my private laneway, 39B Kennedy Jack. In the private laneway, there are 4 houses. I'm the first and his is the 4th, the last. I must admit, though, when I read the letter of opposition, I was unclear as to what the reasons were that he, other than, yes, I was unclear as how to tie my minor variance application to his proposed development of 16 townhouses. He can still try to move forward, whether the lots exist or not. I guess it's just a few points I want to bring up. No application has been made to the town of Aurora for the townhomes, I assume. He hasn't assembled the land yet. So that's the first point. No, the landowners in the subject property have not been consulted. This is the first time I've seen my house, my home, showing up on a map of his. So I'm a little bit emotional about that right now. I was surprised. the landowners that he would need to assemble the land, including me, would likely not sell it to him after, I don't want to see 16 townhouses in this beautiful laneway of ours. And based on the opposition letter the other opposition letter that we received from my current neighbor, it's not likely, like, we're objecting to a 50-foot front lot. It's not likely that he's going to get support for 16 very small built little, townhomes in a beautiful oasis. So based on that, I don't think the opposition of the townhomes should have a direct impact to the minor variance approvals. That's the end of my presentation. Questions, or do we wait until David's done before we do that?
Yeah. So thank you. Is it Meg?
Megan.
Yeah, Megan. Yeah, Megan. Thank you for your presentation. So Peter, do we have any public delegates?
Do you, Mr. Chair? The neighbor that Megan did mention that is right across the laneway. David, are you there?
Hi. Is it me or there's another David?
I am here, David Fletcher.
Oh, okay. Okay, so David, so if we give you ask your full name and your address, please.
Sure. Through you, Mr. Chair, my name is Dr. David Fletcher. I live at 41 Kennedy Street West in Aurora. And as Megan commented, I am the house immediately to the west of the proposed severed property. I appreciate the ability to speak. As Megan mentioned, our opposition really is as follows. Kennedy Street West is the Forest Hill or Rosedale of Aurora. There's only one Kennedy Street West, and we need to be really thoughtful if we do develop or redevelop on Kennedy Street West exactly how we do things. I'll remind people about Kennedy Street West. There are 3 sections. The first section is mainly historical homes from the teens and 20s, usually with 50 to 70 feet lots, some of which are up to 100, as you saw. The second part, right, starting with my house 41 and moving to the west, are acreage lots, mine being 2 acres and one's next door, similar size. And then the third part of Kennedy Street West, past Murray to the west, is a little more subdivision-y. But having said that, still we're looking at 50, 60 feet lots. So our concern really relates to the philosophy of subdividing property in the context of a historic, one-of-a-kind, you can't get it back type of neighborhood. And the concern is the ambiance of the neighborhood changes. I'm not against modernization. In fact, what Megan has done to the current home on the current property is fabulous. It looks fantastic. It is such an improvement. It's modernized. It's an upgrade. It looks phenomenal. I have no problem with people taking homes that aren't historic and building a home that's commensurate with the area on a piece of property. Where I have a problem is subdividing and starting to make our oasis very subdivision-y, where you have 10 feet between homes and 50 homes in a 500-foot area. And what concerns me is the start of this, the subdividing of a 100-foot lot to make 2 homes. What stops the next person from doing the same thing? What stops my neighbors from doing the same thing? And I think once you start to do that, you lose the character of a neighborhood that just can't be replaced anymore in 2024. And there are so many subdivisions and so many houses like that throughout Aurora and throughout Ontario. There's so few areas like ours. it concerns me that it's a bit of a slippery slope. The other issue is, you know what? I worked really hard to move to Kennedy Street West. There is a premium to live on Kennedy Street West. And I'm concerned that that premium will disappear when we start to allow things like this to happen. Changing the character of the neighborhood with homes that are 6 feet apart from each other, like in every other subdivision. And I think we set a precedent that way that I don't particularly feel comfortable with. Another thing that makes me comfortable is we're one of the few neighborhoods in Aurora that has 100-plus-year-old trees all around. And there happens to be a very large tree on the property that will be severed, I presume, that I'm guessing will need to be cut down. And again, that again changes the character of the neighborhood. My comments are very general, but I came from subdivisions. I had kids. We needed to live in subdivisions. We needed to live on top of our neighbors, like all of you likely do. And there are so few areas anywhere in Ontario, but particularly in Aurora, and particularly the Forest Hill, Kennedy Street West, where we start subdividing and we start going down a slippery slope where we just change the vision and the character of the neighborhood. I appreciate Megan's vision. I understand wanting to make the lot the same size as the lots next door, but you need to be here visually to take a look at what's happening. That house on the 100-foot lot that has been renovated now looks beautiful, that Megan's done. Doesn't look out of place. It doesn't look abnormal as a 100-foot lot. It looks like it fits in. I'm worried that when we half the size of that lot, and now we basically are now on top of the laneway with that yard and literally a few feet next to the house next door, the character will become irreparable. So those are my comments. I'm not against modernization. And for the record, I'm not against Bill 23. Of course, we need to build more homes. But you know what? I'll just say one more thing. What's frustrating about using Bill 23 in this application and saying, well, this conforms with Bill 23, what's frustrating for someone like me is to go to Bloomington and Yonge and look at the multi-acre property that was taken to build $5 million homes on, instead of building $1.5 million homes that normal people can buy, and there can be 10 times the amount. Here we are going to Kennedy Street West of all places, and now building those $1.5 million, $2 million homes on areas where there are pre-existing large properties and multi-million-dollar properties. So it's a bit backwards to me. We took land in Aurora that we could have built those types of houses on and built $5 million houses. Now we're going into neighborhoods with $5 million houses and building those houses. It doesn't make sense. So that's it for me. I appreciate, Mr. Chair, the ability to speak.
Okay, thank you very much to the Fletcher. Actually, I gave you more minutes because you are the only speaker.
Thank you. Thank you, sorry.
I wanted, to speak up in mind. Do you have any, Megan, do you think you can respond to Dr. Fletcher's comments?
I don't disagree with David. It's a beautiful neighborhood. We're on the side that is much smaller, so the laneway is when it starts to be beautiful. I don't really have any direct comments.
So if maybe I would just mention, now I'm going through his letter here. He mentioned something about drainage, the possibility of increasing flows. I believe, the flooding in his basement. And I know if let's say we approve this, the consent as well as minor variances, I know for sure the building and site plan, the town will really look at it. It's something which they usually look at: grading, drainage, make sure that the stormwater is controlled within the site. But I'm not sure. This will be sort of also like my comments. Antonio may jump in here in terms of in future trying to take care so that there's no increased runoff towards the laneway from this new property, and also depending on the grading of the laneway, then the water from there and already the water existing in the laneway and going to the Fletcher's house, and thereby increasing flows. How do we address this at this moment that it shouldn't occur, such that drainage should be contained on site or should be appropriately managed when it comes to development? Or should we just leave it to staff like that could be dealt at the site plan stage? That is assuming we approve the consent and management.
For you, Mr. Chair, yes, I can shed some light on that. So when pending the decision of this consent and variance application, if the landowner pursues a building permit application when they're ready to build, building permit will not get issued unless a grading plan is submitted and submitted to the satisfaction of engineering, which will entail them having to manage their stormwater on site. The grading plan was not submitted due to the fact that the building footprint can change based on the owner's desire. This is strictly to sever the property, and they will have to conform with the bylaw at the time of building and submit the required studies to the satisfaction of the town engineering, parks, and planning.
Okay. Okay, that was just wanted to add. So Dr. Fletcher, you heard what Megan said in response to your comments. Do you have any other? Since you are the only one who can give you time, do you have any other comments you want to provide or response to what Megan said, if at all?
I think that first of all, it's the first I've heard really that this is Megan doing this. I had no idea. And second of all, as I said, she's done a fantastic job on the house that's currently on the property. Looks fabulous. It's simply an issue of crowding houses on a street that has no crowded houses at all. The houses, even though their lots are 15 meters, they're not on top of each other. There's multiple meters between homes, unlike a typical subdivision these days where there are not. I do a tremendous amount of walking throughout the community, 15, 20 kilometers a day, and I know the community like the back of my hand. I'm thinking that this is probably the only time I've seen a severance of a lot anywhere in this area. Murray Street, where old homes from the 50s are, Kennedy. I don't think I've seen a severance lately at all that I can think of where houses are that close together in the area. Maybe I'm missing something, but I can tell you if there's maybe one out of 5,000 homes that I walk by every day. So that's the only thing I'll say. Look, I'm on thin ground. I understand that. I just came to say what I feel. I feel Kennedy's a special place, and I feel very sad that we're starting to do this on Kennedy. There are so many places in Aurora we should be and could be, and rather we build $5 million homes. And it's terrible. And I just need to say that to you guys. And I'm sad. I'm sad that this is happening. And no disrespect. It's happening for money reasons, right? It's happening because people buy a lot and they figure this is a great lot to sever. I can make money, and it's fabulous. It's great, and I guess it's great. It's just sad, and I feel very sad. I feel sad for Kennedy, and I feel sad that I spent extra money to live here. And it's not just Megan. It's going to happen over and over again if you allow this on this street and elsewhere. And I feel sad for other people that spent their life working to do something, and then this stuff pops up, and then suddenly your investment isn't the same anymore. Anyways, that's all I have to say.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Fletcher. Peter, do we have any other delegates, if at all?
Through you, Mr. Chair, there are no other public delegations for this application.
Okay. Okay, so members of the committee, any questions, any comments to Megan or Dr. Fletcher who's here? Just maybe comments or whatever. It's open to you. So open up to you. Or even the staff, Julian?
Yes, through you, Mr. Chair. So this is a question to the applicant. Why does the lot have to be severed for two detached units? So for example, I understand Bill 23 has an obligation to increase building densities, but there are other ways of doing that without severing the land. For example, some other applications have done semi-detached, which the lot would have enough space for, or if like a secondary or tertiary unit that is allowed by Bill 23. So why separate into two single units?
Mr. Chair, the whole reason for the purchase of the property, it's kind of personal. I envision seeing, I've got 3 daughters and they're in the 20s. This is not quite technical, but this is the reason why. This is a true reason why. And I foresee or visualize or wish or aspire to have grandchildren running back and forth between my house and their house, which would be this Part 1 severed lot. I can't afford to buy 31 Kennedy and renovate it and keep it. So by severing it and selling it, then I would get this lot that I can sit and think of what I want to do with it. Convince one of my daughters maybe that they want to live there forever. So it's really personal. That is why, Mr. Chair. I'm not sure what I'm going to do with it yet, but we're going to keep that. And if all goes well, one day I'll be sitting on my porch in my backyard and my grandkids just running back and forth. So that is why. Maybe more information you wanted to know, but it is very personal.
Maybe before going to you, Chris, let me check if Julian has more questions, follow-up questions.
Chris can go ahead.
Okay. So Chris, go ahead.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I just wanted to thank the applicant for her very thoughtful presentation, just both with the level of detail, but also the proposal, and actually a bit of a counterpoint just to consider. I find, just based on, and this is from somebody who's actually lived in that exact neighborhood, built a custom home in that neighborhood, did not have any sort of elitist attitude, lived right down the street. You can see on the other side of Kennedy, there's tons of homes that are very similar, smaller lots. We've just approved variances on a very similar setback on Kennedy as well. There's 2 new builds on Temperance that have similar setbacks. It is very characteristic of that exact pocket of Kennedy. I don't see anything here that's unrealistic. And with the zoning that this property has, Megan was fully within her right to go even more dense and have more units. So if this was for a profit maximization, Megan could have a pair of semis here. She could have townhouses here. There's unlimited possibilities with a lot of this size and that zoning that already exists. So I think there is a bit of gratitude in a gratitude moment of saying, okay, Megan is working within the zoning. She is doing this for her own personal reasons, but with a way that respects the community. There's nothing about this proposal on a 50-foot lot on the non-estate area of Kennedy that is not in keeping with that area. So that's my view. I don't have any questions. It, to me, is very straightforward in terms of the rationale given and the clear staff report. So that's it for me.
Okay. Okay, thank you, Chris. Any comments, Michael?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I thank the applicant as well for for her thoughtful presentation. And I also thank Mr. Fletcher. I think he has a good perspective as well, in the sense that, you know, we're using Bill 23 to sort of authorize infill housing that may not be appropriate. But I think he also sees that maybe this may be appropriate depending on what type of home is built there in the future. And he's said himself that the existing house has been renovated well and looks well on the lot. So I'm kind of torn, but I think one of my questions is the laneway, and maybe the town representative can answer this, or maybe Megan, or maybe Mr. Fletcher may answer this. I have a concern with that laneway. Is that laneway a private laneway? Or is our municipal services on that laneway servicing those lots to the south, including Megan's house? I haven't been there. I haven't seen the site, but I do need some clarity as to whether to agree to the severance in the first place, because we have a laneway. It's a right of way for other people to, you know, get to their properties. And also, I have a question for the town, because I'm seeing lot 25, 25 and 29 Kennedy Street West. They look to be 100-foot lots at one time, and they must have been severed, because I see 25 Kennedy with the exact same 15.2 meter frontage. So was that lot a 100-foot lot and severed at one point? Or so there is some precedence in that. So I guess my biggest concern is the laneway. How would this severance, the new lot created being a corner lot at that point, how would that affect access for the other homes further south?
Mr. Chair, if it's okay, if I can address the laneway. My knowledge is from having lived here for 20+ years, the laneway is private. Is not a public laneway. It's owned by the neighbor at the end, the other opposition letter. They own the end house plus that laneway. So it's not a corner lot. The severance shouldn't have any impacts to the laneway. The buildable footprint has a garage and a driveway facing Kennedy. So it wouldn't have any impact. Are we getting municipal services in that laneway? We now, me as a resident in the laneway, we get sewer and water from the municipality. If we were to build on the new severed lot, the part 1, it would be a direct hookup to the city. And I believe engineering has looked at that, and that's not an issue. So it shouldn't impact anything in the laneway. The right of way, we're not going to touch the width of the laneway or in any way whatsoever, because it's private property.
It is private property. So is there any limitations into the usage of that laneway, or something that goes on title that goes along with that laneway? I'm not a lawyer, so I don't know whether there is some type of restriction as to what neighboring property should look like. You're saying it won't be a corner lot. To me, it will be a corner lot in a sense, because that laneway will have cars coming up and down to access onto Kennedy Street West. So any home that's built on the new lot, depending on the size of the home, will have a visual effect or possibility of traffic increasing in that laneway.
Can I just follow up here what Mike was trying to ask? Maybe Anthony can jump in. So thanks, Megan, you indicated that this is a private laneway. So from even your neighbors' comments at the 39B Kennedy, the way I look at it is looking at two things. If that laneway is private, has got the municipal services, the question is for you, property, Megan, the current property and the new property you're going to have, these severed lands, are you planning to hook to the services on the lane or to the services on Kennedy Road. And even for access, for this new, this saver land, if you're building a house or whatever infrastructure you're going to have, are the services, hooking municipal services, water, sanitary, and even access, we're talking about driveway, are they from Kennedy or are from the laneway? So that's the question. If they're from the laneway, then they'll have an impact. And that's the concern of this other one. And that need to be clarified here. I see
Yes, let me address
Antonio
that.
wanted to say something, I think.
For you, Mr. Chair. So this has all been evaluated. The consent application will have zero impact on the laneway. The laneway is privately owned. Access for both lots will be off Kennedy. Municipal services will be off Kennedy.
Okay,
Therefore,
good.
zero impact on the private laneway. And as well, in our zoning bylaw, corner lots, if you're abutting a private laneway, it's technically not considered a corner lot. Corner lots are on municipal roads and laneways. So technically, I understand that, it's kind of a T-shaped, which kind of gives it the presence of a corner lot, but technically it isn't, given our definition. But there's no impact to the laneway. Everything will be off Kennedy, and everything was reviewed and no objections from our engineering, transportation, and servicing.
Okay, thank you very much, Antonio, for clarifying that. Michael, you can continue with your questions or any comments again.
Yeah,
Go ahead, Michael.
does the town have any knowledge or as to 25 and 29? 25 looks, I'm looking on Google Maps and I'm seeing 25 looks like a more modern subdivision type house. And 29 seems to be a more older house that fits in more with the historical nature of Kennedy Street. So it seems to me that lot was severed at some time. Is that correct, Antonio, or do you have any knowledge of that?
So based on my, through you, Mr. Chair, based on our digital records, which takes us to about would be 10 years back, 8 years back, we don't have any record of a consent application for those two properties. That said, it doesn't mean it couldn't have happened. We would just need to take a look at our hard copies prior to that time when everything was submitted via paper. But based on our digital records, we don't have a consent application that severed those lots.
And I guess my last question would be for Megan, the applicant, and I thank you again for your presentation. Would you entertain a condition to the severance that would include that if you were to build a house, that would be in keeping with the historical nature of the street as opposed to a modern subdivision type house?
So this would be a condition to my build, but not the severance and minor variance.
I see Antonio's got his hand up.
Because it's gonna be years before I figure out what I want to do with that land. I certainly wouldn't want a condition to be outstanding for years. Then there's, various ramifications. Maybe Antonio can chime in.
For you, Mr. Chair, the property is not listed on a heritage registry, and given legislation changes in urban design, that wouldn't be a condition I would recommend.
So yeah, I guess I should ask for clarity. There's no designation for historical on either the existing home or anything else, right? Yeah. Okay, thank you. No further questions from me, Mr. Chair.
Okay, any other questions from any member? Okay, so for me, I think some of my questions have been answered, but I still have some somehow. But still, I feel some of these they may be required at the site plan stage if this gets approved. Okay, so as you know, so this is to Megan. As you know, based on the zoning, of course, it's good you have shown us sort of conceptually if it is one building and if it meets all the setbacks or the zoning bylaw requirements. But do you have any thoughts of maybe because looking at the comments from the owner at 38B and his their plan or his plan is showing a sort of conceptual of blocks with units and something like that. Do you at all plan to have a townhouse or like units, something like that?
Similar to Mr. Chair, similar to my neighbor David, I love living here. I've raised my babies here, for 20 something years. I have no intention of allowing my home and our little oasis to be changed into 16 townhomes. I was kind of saddened by that proposal. I looked at it. I mean, commercial, I'm sure it makes sense for them, but we're probably going to live out a lot of parts of our lives in this home. So good luck to him when trying to buy us out.
Okay, so the other thing is, as you know, in general, the approach when you're looking at the severance or though you could have your own intentions, which are personal, maybe your family, we tend not to look at that because you can always change your mind. You can always have somebody else occupy their home and so on. So when we look at all these, we look at something in general. Could be anybody, any person, any Jiro and Jack moving in, buying, depending upon the development. Not necessarily like your family. So we'd look at this situation, what if it's somebody else going in there? Will that person like the setbacks, things like those? That's why I know you are aware, you're in Lolola, maybe you've watched these committee adjustments. You'd have neighbors complaining, oh, the window is very close. They'll be looking at me here when I'm sitting by, things like those. So you look at the setbacks there. Even if I'm providing this comment, this will be, I think, valid during site plan application, and it will be here now. It's a pleading with the town staff if this application gets approved. Pleading with town staff, and I'm hoping maybe some of these members at that time will be still on the committee. They will remember that the 1.2 is. I know it's 1.5, it's a little bit, just 0.3 difference. But here I'm looking at the windows. If maybe you're going to be building this, having consideration that it's not just your family. Who would forgive you if you build something and the windows are not properly designed, or the design that they can look on the other property, or you could look at their property, that you would consider that, okay? For the new area, this is severed lands, but also for your own, because even for your own, there's no design, okay? I can see from structural point of view, building structural point of view, you are demolishing this part and there'll be sort of a wall, but there could be some windows. We don't know that. I don't think of having a design where you put windows on that side where you're removing this other part of the house. So all those design aspects, I'm hoping at one point, probably the town, they would look at it, the planning staff, and making sure that, there's no worry from the neighbor that, the windows will be looking at their windows. So maybe in terms of the design, arrangement of the windows and so on, if we were asking if we could take that in consideration. But I know it's not something you need to be addressed now, but those are the things sometimes when we look at the severances, the minor variances, the proximity of the windows, things like those. So I thought of just mentioning that. Another thing is about the fence. It depends upon what fence you're going to have, whether it's the chain link fence. I know if it's really true what you're saying is your family, you may not need to have a fence. You say, oh, my grandkids will move from one side to the other. There's no need of a fence. But if you see common property, anybody coming to buy, you need to have a fence. So you have to have that consideration of a fence where there's a hedge, that means it takes more room. The setbacks gets again, taken away because the trees are growing, and then the space becomes even smaller compared to having a chain link fence. The last one is about the drainage, which I know also will be addressed at a later stage, I think. as Dr. Fletcher mentioned, I can understand. And the one thing I know with the town of Aurora and being a community adjustment, drainage grading is always a matter being asked to be addressed by town staff. So I'm hoping that you are not going to raise that section of the property, that the grading then will be compromised, and then you have got all the runoff going into the laneway, and by mistake and then go to Dr. Fletcher's lands and increasing flows there. That will be not good, will not be acceptable. So outside of just providing those general comments, and if anything in terms of conditions, I think you have enough conditions in there. Some of them could be addressed later on if at all this is approved, could be addressed on during site plan application stage. So those are my general comments. Anyway, we still have Dr. Fletcher here. Do you have anything else maybe you want to comment on, since you are only delegate here?
I listened to what Chris said, I didn't. I guess, and in listening to what you're all saying, it's not me being elitist. It's me worrying about the space between the homes being different than the space between all the other homes. Yes, the lot was likely severed, and that one historical house and then the next house to it was built probably in the 70s, it looks like. But there is a multitude of space between them still. It's not, if this lot were 120 across, I probably wouldn't have much to say, because as everyone said, it's in keeping with that side of the street, and everything's great. It's simply the proximity of the two homes on that piece of property that will be different than anything else. And that to me, appearance wise, was different than the rest of the community. And one other thing I want to say is, yes, my house is the beginning of the much larger acreage lots, but so is that house at 100 feet across, because the rest of the homes are 15 meters or 45 or 50 feet. So we are taking a larger acreage and making it smaller. So anyways, it's the proximity of the home. It wasn't that, oh my God, how can you build these little tiny homes next to my big home? It wasn't about that. It was about the neighborhood and the spacing between the homes. It isn't necessarily about severance per se. I could take my 220-foot lot, if it wasn't floodplain, and sever it into 450-feet lots with lots of space between them, and probably everyone would be happy about that. I can't do that. So it's simply the space between the homes. That's my only comment. That's it. It's not anything else. Megan has wonderful taste. I can see that in what she's done. It was simply the space between the homes. If everyone here feels that the space between the homes is acceptable for the street of Kennedy in Aurora, so be it. I have nothing else to say. It was simply that.
Okay. Just to for Michael, just to clarify one thing, I've used another tool which I'm able to use, and I've gone back to 1970. Basically, lots 25 and 126 were one, and then you could see a building, and then after that, that was in 1970. Then after that, so approximately 1978 or so, I think there was severance, creation of lot 25 with a house, and the 126 with it was sort of a retained road, just to give some perspective. Yeah. Anyways,
thank you,
okay,
Mr. Chair.
Michael?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, for clarifying that for me. But I would have liked some legality to that laneway issue, because it seems out of character to see something like that in that area. I mean, to me, it's a private road, so Is your garbage collected by the town? Is the road maintained by the town? Is snow plowing done by the town? That's one of my concerns that I have there. And I know that that lot will be serviced from Kennedy Street West now. That's been clarified by me, but I just don't know how it fits into that context of that corner and what we envision in the future. So, and I guess one of the 4 tests under the Planning Act is, does it fit into the neighborhood? Like, is it appropriate development for the overall neighborhood? And I guess committee of adjustments hands are tied now with this Bill 23 as well, because as Julian mentioned, the applicant can just, build, 2 homes on that lot as it exists as semis, and probably under Bill 23 be approved for it, or a 4-plex or a 6-plex. I don't know. With Bill 23, she could apply for anything. Tear the little house down and put a 4-plex on that lot and probably get approved, or a 6-plex. So again, the committee basically is hands tied here. I see the necessity, the aspirations of the owner, and I understand that. But I see the context of the neighborhood too. But then as a committee, our hands are tied with this Bill 23 because the province says we need more affordable housing. We need more density, right, in established neighborhoods. So it might be out of the town's hands or the committee's hands if the applicant decides, I'm going to put a 6-plex on that lot. And it probably can do it. So having said that, I mean, I did want some clarity on that laneway to see if there's any legal restrictions as to what can be done next door to that corner. But I understand. So I think we'll leave it up to the committee to make a final decision here. Thank you.
Okay, before Chris, can I ask you, Antonio? I know you explained a little bit, but it seems still, the committee members need more explanation, clarification on the laneway. I think one thing which I know for sure it's been known is that is a private laneway, and it belongs to the owner at the 39B. And we also had municipal services there because they're servicing properties number 37, number 39, number 39A, and number 39B. So this is the question maybe Michael has, but if I remember very well or correctly, is that this property we're dealing with now here has nothing to do or will not have any impact in terms of servicing, in terms of access to the laneway, because you have services from Kennedy Street, both sanitary and water. And for access also, driveway, it will not come from the laneway, it will come from Kennedy. The only one thing which for me, would maybe Antonio would provide more clarification, is as a corner lot, as he explained very well. And I don't want to, I will leave that his job. I have got some experience in this. It's something which I do on my other job. The definition of the corner lots, when you go laneway, or is it public road? But I think Antonio explained that, but I would wish him maybe to provide more clarification as to really the relevance of the laneway to this property. For me, only for me as an individual, I think it's very clear. It's a private one. This property will have no access, vehicle access or driveway from this laneway. There'll be no connection, sanitary water main to this laneway. The only thing, if at all, is probably the drainage, because of the grading of the lot being, you've got 4 corners where the flow will go, but probably they would have a swell on abutting the laneway, which will take the water from that side going in front. We don't know the design, but maybe Antonio, if you again provide some clarification for the members.
For you, Mr. Chair, as I iterated earlier, in terms of the applications that are being presented, which are the two minor variances in the consent application, it is staff's opinion that there is zero impact to the laneway from an access, which is vehicular access, and a servicing access in terms of municipal water. When the time comes for a building permit, whenever the owner applies, the grading plan will need to be submitted and demonstrate that the property can maintain stormwater on its site and not cause any adverse flooding or any runoff to the private lane. If for whatever reason it cannot be maintained on site, then building permits cannot get issued regardless whether a minor variance or consent application were approved. So unfortunately, the grading plan was not submitted at this stage due to its preliminary status, and the property owner still trying to figure out exactly the intent of the proposed severed lot. But everything will need to be maintained on site. Regardless if it's a municipal laneway or a private laneway, but it is a private laneway, we can't have runoff going onto the private lane because it is someone else's property and has to be maintained on site.
The clarification from Antonio, okay, for all the members? I'm not closing or shutting down. If you have more questions, comments, please. You're supposed. I know, Chris, you had wanted to speak. Yeah, go ahead, Chris.
So for you, Mr. Chair, I think we just need to be careful as a committee with whatever decision that we come to, that we're considering the facts. The laneway is an interesting side bar conversation. It is not relevant to this application. It doesn't form part of what the applicant is trying to do. It's not within the property boundaries. There's no easement over the laneway. Nothing about the laneway, the servicing, the grading is affected by this application. They would have to keep all of their water within their envelope, like Antonio said. So again, that's not a relevant fact at this stage. That would be at the building permit stage. It also, I just want to clarify the Bill 23 and the severance portion. So the applicant would already have as of right, or as anyone does in the town of Aurora, to apply for a severance and have that consideration. The property already has zoning for R7. So in the, just for members of the public who may be joining in that zoning, it's not an estate residential zoning for that property. That's already in the official plan and on the designation of the zoning role, it is designated R7. So that is a multiple high density zoning as of right. So like someone was saying earlier, 4-plex, 6-plex, semi townhouses, that's already there regardless of Bill 23. So it's not a new thing that's come in, that's already on that property. The applicant is simply requesting a severance. And it looks like from the town staff's report that all of the figures in terms of their design and what they're proposing truly does meet the 4 tests of the Planning Act for a minor variance. So to me, that feels very above board in terms of what they're trying to do.
Okay, thank you, Chris. Michael?
I tend to agree with Chris, but from a layman's perspective, as just a resident of Aurora, I'd like to see communities come together and build something that blends in with the community. And one of the 4 tests is the blending in of proposed development to what's already there. And as a layman, as a resident, I'd like to see that as opposed to differential type homes in established neighborhoods. We want to try and keep as much as the appropriateness of new development to fit in with properties that are in proximity. And I think Mr. Fletcher made a good point, he's right next door. And so that, I'd like to see that type of, for the community, I think, the logical thing is to try and build something that fits in, right? That is not, a total offshoot, like a 6-plex just wouldn't fit in there, in my opinion. But Chris says the zoning is already there for it, so so be it. But again, under the 4 tests, one of the tests is it appropriate development for the neighborhood? And so that's what I'm concerned with sometimes when I'm considering these applications, as well as what the zoning bylaw says, what the official plan says. Sure, it meets all those requirements, and that's fine. But as a layman, as a resident of a community, you'd like to see some of the new development blend in, and that's all I'm saying. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you. See Antonio, raising up your hand.
Through you, Mr. Chair, maybe just for the benefit of committee, so what's being proposed tonight is a, consent application to sever the property, create 1 additional lot, and the building footprint is demonstrated as a single. I know that, as Chris mentioned, there are other permitted uses that are there, prior to all the Bill 23 changes, but when we evaluate streetscape, the applicant doesn't have any minor variances for lot frontage. So in terms of a streetscape perspective, when you're driving down Kennedy or walking down Kennedy, the lot frontages meet the intent of the bylaw, because there is no variance for lot frontage. The variances are for lot area, but from a streetscape perspective, the lot could be, very deep or very shallow, and you wouldn't really see that from the road if the lot frontage is meeting what's intended to be there. So in terms of compatibility, as the applicant has demonstrated in terms of demonstrating a single, it does fit in the intent of the neighborhood. If for whatever reason they were showing townhouses, we'd be having a completely different conversation. But unfortunately, we can't be very, hypothetical, and we just need to, evaluate the application on its merits, and any further residential development would require planning staff pre-consultation. It's not just a set in stone that townhouses can be built. There's a whole bunch of things that need to be done to even evaluate a proposal like that. So in terms of the application as presented, we believe that it meets the intent of the neighborhood.
Okay, thank you, Antonio. Any additional follow-up questions or comments from members? Okay, so this time we've heard from the owner, the applicant. We've heard from one public delegate, and then the questions, comments, and from members, clarifications from staff. So at this point, I'm going to ask for any motions from members of the committee. Please, I'm waiting for you. I cannot raise my hand myself. Unfortunately, I will get from you.
Just for clarification, David, are we putting forward a motion for both the consent and the matter variance?
No, so okay, as I explained area 1. We're going to start with the we're going to start with the consent application, because the minor variance, they depend on the consent being approved. If the consent is not approved, then the minor variance cannot, because the minor variances, they depend on those 2 lots being severed, and then the retained lot has got that minor variance, and also okay, both have got the minor variances. One is the same in terms of the lot size, while the part 2, the retained one, has got an additional one in terms of interior side setback. So we'll start with the consent application. So I'll need a motion. I should have mentioned that. I need a motion on a consent application, please. I see Chris, you are raising up your hand.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, for the clarification. I would like to make a motion to move to approve consent application 2024-02, subject to the conditions outlined in the staff report.
Okay, do we have a seconder for that motion? So the thing, so he has the motion to approve this this consent application. So the two motions is seconding this motion, or not accepting this motion and proposing another one, or if at all, is one of you could abstain, and then later on, whatever other one, then we have two people seconding. Then you ask if motion is okay, then it will be third to say all in favor. And then if there's third one, that is it is me. But let me just explain first, Michael, so that we're clear here, because I can see his station. Or if we, let's say, both of you, one abstains, or both, or anyone, or whoever comes with second motion, he said, you know, it doesn't accept that motion, then he will be asked to do another motion. So automatically the next motion is a denial motion, and then he'll ask you for a seconder for that denial motion. And if it's seconded by somebody, then I'll say who in favor. Okay, so that's how that is going to go. So the motion we have now here on the floor is supporting this approval of the consent application. So, Michael?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair. I do second the motion, just with some clarity though, is, you know, I do support the motion because the zoning and the official plan and everything and the 4 tests are there to permit the consent application. But I would like to see, I would have wanted to see a condition in to permit some type of street plan or house plan that would fit into the neighborhood, but obviously that's not possible, so I do second the motion of Chris Pulcinelli.
Okay, so still, I want to consider what you are saying. This is a public forum. You are saying you would wish something, but for the sake of clarification, maybe I would ask Antonio or even Peter, in terms of what Michael is saying is that you second the motion, but if maybe a condition in terms of to deal with streetscaping, in terms of fitting, what do you think, in opinion, could be? Because it has to be something which can be implemented. You know what I mean? So, what is your opinion if that will be the case?
Through you,
What
Mr. Chair.
would you suggest?
Yeah. Through you, Mr. Chair. As I stated previously, urban design is a touchy subject now, especially with all the legislation changes, and we can't enforce it. And even further to that, urban design is so subjective. What I think is good urban design could be different to all the members of the committee, to the applicant, to the neighbors of the street. So it's so subjective that we don't have a tangible way to clear that condition. I may, think it's great design, but other people may not think so. There's no tangible way to clear a condition. Just like submitting a grading plan to the satisfaction of engineering, that could be clear, because if it's not satisfied, then development doesn't go through. But urban design is very subjective, so we don't have a mechanism, nor are we allowed to impose a condition for it.
Okay, so the other condition I just want to clarify here for the sake of Michael, I want to make sure everybody's feelings are considered. As Antonio explained, since the laneway is a private laneway, it's a private land, nobody is allowed in Ontario to discharge runoff to neighboring property. So even maybe I'm mentioning this because sometimes we are feeling that, oh, maybe this should be a condition. The town staff already addressed it. They will not allow that. So it's something, it's a given. It will be there. Okay, just to add some perspective, it's a given. You're not allowed to discharge flow to a neighboring property. Now, this laneway, as we heard, some of us, we thought it is actually a public laneway. since they are okay, municipal, I would say maybe municipal laneway, since there are municipal services there. But we learned tonight that it's a private one, and therefore nobody will be allowed to discharge in there. Okay, so I just want to clear that. And for seascaping, as Anthony said, it's really very general. What you do, all of us here as we're here, how you'd wish to have landscaping on a particular area, it'd be very subjective. But we hope and we trust the town staff that with the urban design folks, they'll make sure that in combination of not discharging any flow to the laneway, which will then affect or impact on Dr. Fletcher's lands for that one, and then with the urban design landscaping, we're hoping things will be done appropriately. So with that, Michael, do you still want condition from your position, or you just second the motion?
I'll just second the motion. I'm satisfied by the town's explanation, and I think that,
Okay.
it will be well done.
Okay. Okay. Now, all in favor of the motion? Motion carried. So, Megan, your consent application has been approved, and I thank you very much for that. Now we're going to the second one. So the second one is in two parts. The minor variance, the first one, MV-2024-17. We're going to start with that one, members of the committee, and then we'll move to the second one, MV-2024-18. So do you have any motions for the minor variance application MV-2024-17, which is related to part one, the proposed severed lot, which is the western portion? Okay, Chris, you are the first to raise your hand. Go ahead.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I move to approve minor variance 2024-17, subject to the conditions in the staff report.
Okay. Also, just for the sake of Megan, the conditions which are in the staff's report, they apply to both variances, okay, separately. Do we have a seconder for this motion? Michael?
I'll second that, yeah.
Okay, all in favor of the motion? Motion carried. Then the next minor variance, MV-2024-18, which is related to part two, which is the proposed retained lot. That's the eastern portion. Do you have any motions for that? Michael?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I move approval of MV 2024-18, subject to the conditions as provided by the staff report.
Okay, do we have a seconder for that motion? Chris?
I second that motion.
Oh, okay, okay. Do we all in favor of the motion? Motion carried. So again, Megan, you minor variance applications, both of them, they have been approved with conditions in the staff's report. So thank you very much for being here tonight. And also thank you, Dr. Fletcher, for being here as our special public delegate. We appreciate your comments, and it's always, encouraged to be, to have, a public, contribution. It's always important. We really appreciate it. Yeah. So please have a good night. Michael, you wanted to say something? No? Yeah, okay. So anyway, good night, Megan. Good night, David.
Thank you, Mr.
Yeah,
Chair,
okay.
members of the committee, and David, thank you for your time and your entire evening.
Yeah, thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. Okay, so the next is Do we have any new business? Okay, so no business. So I would ask for a motion for adjournment. Okay, Julian. So the meeting tonight is adjourned. And thank you very much, folks, for the long night. I know usually we have 2 applications, 3 applications, but tonight I think there were almost 5 applications, especially the last 2 were somehow complicated, and appreciate your contribution, appreciate your questions, inquiring, and I also appreciate Antonio for providing all the clarifications and so on. We really appreciate it. Yeah. So anyway,
No problem.
have a good night, everybody.
Take care, everyone. Thank you again.
Night, everyone. Good night.